Welcome to the Swolecast here on rotogrinders.com. It's going to be a fun show. We've got special guest LordReebs on the show, and maybe Pete. There he is. There is Pete on today's show. So Pete is joining today's show. He's on with us. It's going to be fun. Stick around. It's a Swolecast on rotogrinders.com.
You being static from the Swolecast? I was like, yep, that's me.
I just want you guys to know I'm total dust. I'm the problem.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Leave it to the guy with the crypto dunes, Abby, to not understand context.
I should have known you getting 30 likes was directly written by someone else.
You know me, I don't do a ton of research before the show.
I've put no research into this. Don't know if it's true at all.
You're on the right show.
To it, bro. Live a little.
Live a little.
Just live a little, guys.
Welcome. Come on in. We've got an exciting show. As you know, this is the bi-weekly Swolecast, or bi-monthly Swolecast. No, I think it's bi-weekly. 2 times per month, every other week. So, so we have a lot to talk about since 2 weeks ago. Davis, how's it going?
It's going great, man. We are about to the NFL draft. We've reached the stage where JJ McCarthy is now, he's going number 2 overall. I think we're about 72 hours away from some NFL insider saying actually the Chicago Bears are thinking about not taking Caleb Williams and instead opting into the JJ McCarthy experience.
Yeah, seeing Drake May outside the top 10 is something. We'll get to that in a second. Pete, how's it going for you? You got everything set up? Thanks for joining us, I guess.
I was like, this is just bullshit, Dave. I mean, we start this show 3 minutes late every week. I'm like literally 15 seconds late. And the one time you have an early hard out, you're going to fire up the show before I get here?
Listen, I mean, you are getting rather big, but you're not bigger than the show.
Shut up,
Pete.
Shut up. I am the only one who puts any effort into this show. I spend time. No, listen to this, Kitchen. I spend legitimate time on Wednesday mornings writing the Oversets overview. I'm the only one who does any pre-prep for this show. That's a fact.
Part of my prep is not doing prep. That's how I prep for the show. Davis, I do want to know, like, you've got the North Face jacket on with the t-shirt, but yet I see clips of you also with like a suit on for your sports grid stuff. Do you do like costume changes based on the vibes of the show?
Well, I mean, I have to for a lot of our programming on Sports Grid, they like us to wear a sports jacket, which is right over there. Yeah. And yeah, when I'm not on TV, I'm not just wearing a sports jacket around the house, so I change out of it immediately.
The North Face jacket, I love it.
It's cold in my in-laws' basement right now. It's about 60 degrees, so I got the North Face.
Oh, okay. On. I didn't know you were in in-laws' basement. That would make sense. The background is a little better. Yeah. All right. I want to welcome in special guest Hribar, LordReebs, friend of the show, just a pioneer in the fantasy space. Reebs, how's it going, buddy?
Listen, guys, it's always good when I get the invite, to come on the Swolecast. I wish I had a bit planned, like I did, the last 2 times I was on. But This is a no bit March here for me. I've been slacking this offseason. It's been nice. Just been kind of chilling. But next week we have like team needs. And then it's April, like NFL draft month. So like I'm like back on the clock and like doing stuff like full time. So yeah, it is what it is.
How many big board drafts have you done?
None, man. I haven't done any yet.
Yes. It just means you're a regular person, not one of these guys who feel like they have to fill their every spare moment in March or February, January with drafts. So Reebs, you're on team Has a Life.
I also made it a point this offseason that I was going to do less this like post Super Bowl than I had done any other year.
Yeah.
And I fulfilled that.
Yeah. AJT wants to know if you are a part of the Soccer Dave tree. You were one of the building blocks. You were one of
well, Dave, you're You are missing a key way to add Rich to the tree, which I'm honestly stunned you have not done, which is that Reebs' first appearance on a podcast was on the Sports Wonderkin podcast, probably about 13 years ago, honestly, at this point. And you obviously, I mean, I don't know if you're still claiming me on your tree these days, but if you are, Reebs would be a branch off there.
Yeah. And
listen, I do cut the grass in Fantasy Insider's gear, though. I do have Fantasy Insider's gear.
See? We had that crew. We had Sean, we had Reebs, had a couple of the action guys, the Graybon. Like this was way before FF Comedy Hour _ Pete was even a thing. And now look at us. Pete's the one who's just grinding it out.
Yeah, I used to do an article for Insiders where we used to talk about like the key injuries and how it would impact DFS. And I remember writing up a game where Riley Cooper had like 2 touchdowns. It was like pre like super racist Riley Cooper. Well, he was still probably super racist still probably at that moment. It just wasn't exposed yet. But I remember just Riley Cooper being like the dude that like hit.
Yeah.
It was like kind of like the linchpin of like, this is why we do this article, to be on top of Riley Cooper touchdowns.
Yeah. Based there in Cleveland, so we'll get your take in a second just on this Browns team and this offense that seems like it's poised to take off this season. But before we do that, we want to do what users or viewers usually come to the show for, and that is Mr. Overzet's overview.
He's got that dog in her butt. He's got that dog in her butt. Overzet overview. Come on.
All right. Welcome to the Swolecast, the show that was recently described as not a real show.
Yeah.
The issue
by who?
This, Davis, just let me do my jokes. The issue with this review, though, is it was not uttered by a random commenter, but by one of the longest standing cast members, Mr. Davis Maddock. See, Davis, if you're just patient, we can get to that information.
Best day of my life.
Maddock is now claiming he doesn't have to own up to anything he says on this show, so you guys can do with that what you will. And for me, this is now the 3rd straight day in a row for me doing a show with Davis, and my patience is wearing thin. But I keep hearing from everyone how important it is to spend time with your kids when they're young. And we'll just never get this time back. So I am enjoying it. That should actually be the motto for this show. Watch the Swolecast Wednesdays at 1 p.m. You'll never get that time back. I think put that on a shirt. We roped poor Lord Reebs into doing the show today. A last gasp effort on our part to keep the veneer of a real show intact while its edifice is destroyed by a mole from the inside. Reebs, happy to have you here today. It's nice to have someone else here who can tell Davis that Malachi Corley isn't happening, or tell David Kitchen that no matter how many players the Titans add this offseason, it doesn't change the fact that Will Levis is their quarterback. So a voice of reason here today. I have no idea what we're going to talk about for the next, what is it now, 35 minutes? Because Kitchen...
36 minutes, yeah.
36 minutes. Kitchen has a real early hard out today. Maybe 35 minutes on the hip drop tackle. I think that's what this audience would like, which, by the way, guys, the pussification of the NFL, it just won't stop. I mean, I long for the days where playing fantasy football felt dangerous, Anyways, I'll leave the show topics up to our host, David Kitchen, who I know will keep us on track, focused, sharp, hitting our marks regardless of what we discuss. Back to you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned it. Twitter or X just went ablaze yesterday or 2 days ago with the hip drop tackle, and then yesterday morning, the kickoff rule. And I mean, people just going nuts. NFL is going to be flag football before we know it, yada, yada, yada. I mean, without even really reading what is going to happen, Pete, I do want to get your thoughts first as a former XFL thought leader. The new kickoff rule is coming straight from the XFL.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it would seem weird to have a non-pro take on this. We are going to reduce injuries. We're going to keep the excitement of kickoffs. It was already piloted, like you said, in the XFL, worked out really well. People liked it. Seems like a win-win, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, any reason not to like this, Reebs?
It's just the old ball knower thing ruining my game, right? Like it's the same thing with the horse
Devin Hester's NFL.
Like, yeah, I mean, the NFL is coming off a year where they had the highest touchback rate in league history. They're just trying to make some. In the league that's desperate for some offense, right? Like we are in a current defensive meta. I just did a show at Davis and been talking about it. Like we're like the league is trying to get some points scored. These last 2 years have sucked for the offense. They're just trying to find a way to get some offense, and making teams go 75 yards isn't the way.
Yeah, Davis, are you excited about this?
I mean, I really like it because it is going to allow old friend Cordarrelle Patterson the opportunity to extend his lead.
Not just old friend.
Old friend. If you don't know the Cordarrelle Patterson lore, you should have watched the show 11 years ago.
Who likes CPAP more, Davis or Arthur Smith? I mean, that's the debate.
I mean, the first time that Cordarrelle Patterson gets a goal line carry over Jalen Warren, fantasy Twitter is going to stop thinking that the CPAT stuff is so cute and funny, and they're gonna turn on him real fast.
I thought he was.
Aren't you Eskimo brothers?
Yeah, I thought you were more than a friend.
Yeah,
that was that was indeed the lore.
Yeah.
Who was first, you or him?
Honestly, it's been so long, I kind of forget.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking. I was 18 years old. I'm a 31-year-old man with a mustache now.
He also
Congratulations, 18-year-old Davis.
I should have set this joke up in the Overzets overview, but the common denominator between Arthur Smith's relationship with Cordarrelle Patterson and the rest of the players on his teams and Davis's relationship with him is cucking. Like that is what
Dan Bach is not going to be happy with this show. We are getting demonetized right now. How?
Show, bro. Say whatever I want.
Yeah, Davis, are you okay with not a real show meaning not a real paycheck? Is what my question is.
You know, I'll have to bring that up with Better Collective's HR department to see if I can be punished for something said on a non-company stream. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's publicly available. Yeah, we got lots to talk about. Davis, your thoughts on Snead jumping ship and going?
Okay, all right, good. So we're starting with a 27-year-old cornerback with a bum knee getting traded for a third-round pick over, we had LSU's pro day. We had Matt Harmon.
We'll get to that in a second. I just want to know your thoughts real quick on Snead jumping ship and going to the opportunity that Tennessee provides them.
So my thoughts would be that every time Veach has done this, he's looked correct.
Yeah,
I can't think of one time he did this where he was wrong. Actually, the mistakes that Veach have made have actually been the other way, acquiring guys that were coming on to second contract time, which has been real mistakes on his part. And to me, it indicates that the organization is actually simpatico with all of us, which is we don't want to watch another year of Pat Mahomes being glorified Ryan Tannehill of the Chiefs scoring 21.5 points per game. We would like to get back to score. Crazy stat. In the first Chiefs Super Bowl season, so 2019, 2020, they averaged a full touchdown more per game than Mahomes' most recent Super Bowl season, 21.5 points per game to 28.5 points per game. I think organizationally, they prefer the balance to be the other way. So if that means not paying Snead his money, that means not paying Snead his money.
Davis famous for saying on this show that the Chiefs would never draft Hollywood Brown or have Hollywood Brown.
Okay, if we really want to do this, we really want to roll back the tape. What I said.
I don't want to do this. I want to move on. Reebs, your thoughts on this Titans defense?
Listen, I'm cool with the Titans in general as an offense, just how different everything's going to be. Now, granted, Will Levis is still their quarterback, and
I will not stand for all this Levis slander. It is
if you are going to go into bed with Will Levis and see what he has, like, why not do this? Because here's the thing: it's not just that they added Calvin Ridley and added Tony Pollard. It's the loss of Vrabel, Derrick Henry, adding Brian Callahan. It's going to be totally different. Like, this is a team that lived in playing 2 wide receiver sets, facing 8-man boxes, and they're going to live in 11 personnel now. They're going to spread the field. Like, this is a good Madden roster. Like, if you're picking the Titans in Madden,
that's exactly what it is.
Like, this is good. Like, you got speed everywhere. You're going to open the field up. Now, they don't have an offensive line, and they have a quarterback that is very erratic. So we'll see how this comes together. But
the quarterback play is because of the offensive line play.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll keep blaming that on Kentucky. We'll blame that on Tennessee. We'll blame it every stop Will Levis has had.
Just wait. Let him cook. Let him cook. Callahan said at the coaches' meetings that Ridley was going to be basically Jamar Chase. I want to know.
He did say that. That is true. That was those words that were said.
And people drafted him last year like he was going to be Jamar Chase. And how did that work out?
Some of us saw the difference between him and Zay Jones running routes and couldn't keep it in their pants. Some of us.
But it's fun. I think on paper it's fun though. Like, you've got Hopkins, who still wasn't dead last year. Ridley was still a guy that was constantly open, which is interesting. Like, the whole dichotomy around Trevor Lawrence and what's going on is interesting, because like there seems to be polarizing views if it's Trevor Lawrence even good now. That's going on now. And the Jaguars probably missed their window. He's gonna have to get extended. Like, the Jaguars probably missed like the one opportunity they had to kind of run away with this division. But you add Ridley, you've got the ghost of Treylon Burks still there as like a 3. Okonkwo is like a athletic tight end, and you've got 2 running backs that can be probably interchangeable in terms of role in Spears and Pollard, and a quarterback that can move a little bit. I'm at least in on paper.
And they're going offensive line at number 7. I mean,
none of these guys are going to be expensive in the best ball streets right now. I haven't drafted a team, but I'm assuming none of these guys are expensive, right?
What do you think the costs are between Pollard and Spears?
Well, I imagine before free agency, Spears was getting drafted ahead of Pollard, was he not?
Way ahead, yeah.
Because the assumption was like, Derrick Henry's gone. We're going to try to beat ADP if the Titans don't sign a guy. And he would have been potentially, a 4th round, draft pick. Now he's going to be kind of one of those, zero RB darlings to kind of draft again.
He's even cheaper than that. Pollard is running back really 21 cheap. And Spears is running back 30, but there's like a pretty big delta between the two of them.
I think I'd rather have Pollard at 21 than Spears at 30.
I agree. And but it's hard to know how much of that is just.
I mean, you probably want all these guys in best ball more than you do in lineup setting formats because of the volatility that this offense traditional have.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think a lot of the pieces here, based on what I believe their initial costs would be, I think I'm at least in on the surface of saying that there's a lot more probably upside than people are probably baking in.
All right, we'll get to some prospects in a second.
I was about to compliment the Titans, Dave. I think more teams should do the 2 interchangeable guys than big guy, little guy. Because if it's two interchangeable guys, it's just obviously so much less of a tell to the defense. But if it's big guy, little guy, a la Patriots, you're pretty much saying this is the offense we're running right now.
We're trusting Callahan. I have
to ask you, Ketchen, do you have like a crisis?
You call me Ketchen?
Kitchen. I was saying Callahan and Kitchen into one.
Karen Ketchen.
Are you having a bit of a crisis of faith about this iteration of the Titans? Because like we said, with Vrabel and Derrick Henry, that was a high T team. And that kind of aligned with your brand. You were always kind of wanting to push back against the piss boys and the beta movement. And now the Titans have gone full beta. They're like, man, our quarterback sucks. We got to get him all these weapons and all this stuff. And we bring in these little lightweight running backs. Aren't you just a little nervous?
All right, you're doing this like it's an effeminate team, and it's not. It's just it's not
an effeminate.
It's not. It's just
they were so excited to get rid of the hip drop tag.
I was going to say the Titans.
Yay! It's
Titans are probably the number 1 team trying to get rid of the hip drop.
No, I think I'm more of a chameleon where I can be the alpha if it's needed, or I can be the analytical bro.
When have you ever been able to be the analytical bro?
Well, you just gotta let me prove myself. is usually parroting other people's takes, but yeah, I'm excited about this version of the Titans. I've said it, like, this is you go and see what you got, and then if it doesn't work out, perfect. I think Vegas set their wins at 5.5, so if they get under that, then they're going to have a chance next year at another quarterback. So that's fun. All right, I was going to talk about just the coaches meetings, but we can move past that unless and it's just let's talk about the LSU Pro Day today. That's more relevant. You got Jalen Neighbors. Just no.
Close. Yeah,
Jalen Daniels.
Close again.
Again, high and outside, Dave. We're getting there.
Jaden
Daniels. You want a good Jaden Daniels stat?
Yes.
5 months older than one Mr. Trey Lance. 5 months older than Trey Lance, just languishing there on the Dallas Cowboys roster.
I mean, had a really good season last year, though, Davis. Really good.
People are saying this more and more all the time.
People are saying the Heisman Trophy winner had a good season.
People are saying it.
Davis, you are known as the guy who has a really strong pulse on LSU prospects. So I want to know.
I do want the record to show round trip. I was right. Round trip on Odell Beckham Jr.
Were you
right? Yes.
No, I don't think you can claim you were right on Odell. He had,
man.
He had some really good seasons. I don't think you can claim that.
He had a really good 6-game stretch that people really remember for sure.
Do you know who took the L real bad in that 2014? Sammy Watkins over Mike Evans, Hardos. That one did not break right for them.
You see him? You see him?
All right. But this quarterback situation and now the two receivers, you've got some mock drafts putting Drake May now outside the top 10. You got JJ going number 2, number 3.
These are men who just want attention.
These are clickbait farms? Is that what you're saying, Davis?
Yeah, I believe there are a couple JJ McCarthy people who are actually doing it out of true belief. The fantasy points guy, I forget his name, and Thor Nystrom, I believe that they are legit non-clickbait JJ McCarthy people. They've been on it. They've been consistent about it. But I think a lot of the JJ McCarthy people, best quarterback in the class, top 3 quarterback in the class, I think that's clickbait factories. And I think anything referring to May is not the second best quarterback is truthfully just so far from objective reality.
I don't know. I mean, I think the latter part probably definitely isn't true. I mean, May, like on a lot of stuff on my end, doesn't look nearly as clean. To me, he looks a lot like Rich Jordan Love, which I think is a compliment. He looks a lot like, from a tool perspective, a lot like what Jordan Love had. But I mean, he definitely doesn't have a clean profile.
He's crackhead Justin Herbert. That's all I can. It's like Justin Herbert wired on Mountain Dew is what I think of when I watch him. That was just what I got.
I mean, the interesting thing about May, and I think some of the quarterbacks in this class, and I think the prospects in this class in general, that I find interesting is that the draft class, this particular draft class, is like the first one where we had like this COVID extension, and we've seen a lot of guys use this to their advantage, especially this quarterback class. Jaden Daniels being one, obviously Bo Nix and Michael Penix completely using this to their advantage. Then, definitely when we get to the other skill groups, you see a lot of wide receivers like we wouldn't even probably know of, that for 5th year like breakout. Like Xavier Legette maybe doesn't even get a combine invite last year if he has to, graduate.
No chance.
But May, that's where I think it helps May. Like May being the on the younger end, being being 21 last year, only playing 2 years as a starter, where it's like we have like massive samples on Daniels, Bo Nix, and Penix. These guys have started 50 to 60 college games, where we only have this 2-year sample on May. And it's pretty, there's some stuff that's kind of sketchy on it. That's not perfect, but there's still definitely a lot of upside. And I think that's where you can play into the upside stuff for May a little bit more than maybe some of the other guys, because the sample hasn't fully written itself like it has on the other guys that definitely use that 5th year to their advantage.
I mean, what if Jaden Daniels was forced? What if Jaden Daniels got bad advice from his team and came out after that disaster junior year at ASU? Where does he go? I mean, 5th round developmental pick, more or less. Like, it's hard to overstate, compare what May or Caleb just did in their 3rd year of playing high level college football to what Jaden Daniels did his 3rd year. Or even same with Nix. I mean, go look at Nix's 3rd season. Like,
and I think that's part of the pro McCarthy stuff too. You know, McCarthy being,
yes.
you know, he just turned 21 in January.
Yeah.
You know, understanding that you still have so much more runway. And we've seen some NFL teams, like, we know the age is a part of the process to a degree, but we still haven't really seen like it fully, you know, like honed in a universal stance.
All right. Rank your quarterbacks from a draft perspective, not a fantasy perspective. Your 4 quarterbacks.
Reebs,
I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that, like, I don't have to, because I'm not an organization, right? Like, I'm not tying myself to these guys. I only care about the fantasy football.
You do have to, because I just ask you.
Yeah, why would we talk about fantasy value on this show? Let's put I
want to know.
Picture.
Let's pretend like we're the Ringer NFL show right now.
Whoever takes
a mock draft right now.
Because that's the beauty of it, is, you know, that we can sit here and talk about these things, and I don't have to put on a hat and have this firm JJ McCarthy take. What I know about JJ McCarthy is the to thread the needle on him being like a top 6 fantasy quarterback is ultra thin, so I don't care.
Yeah,
but like, you know, but like, if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, or like a team that's entertaining, like trading up for him or taking him, like, you better hit.
Well, the Vikings taking McCarthy is actually like double Yahtzee, because it gives him an opportunity to come in and immediately have guys to throw to, and gets rid of us having to deal with a year of Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones with Zach Wilson. Or, I mean, you know, honestly, I don't think maybe unpopular
Bucky Brooks
opinion.
had in his NFL mock draft, NFL.com, he had Drake May going 11 to the Vikings.
Well, Bucky Brooks is he's LARPing then, because it's not going to happen. May will absolutely not go.
Okay, well, rank the quarterbacks then. How you think they'll go off the board, Davis?
Well, I'll just give you my assessment of their skill. Caleb is in a tier of his own, alone. Then there's a break, and then it's May, and then it's Jaden, then it's McCarthy. And I actually think Penix is probably a little bit closer here. Not Penix, Nix. Nix has no ceiling. Like,
not a real show. Hashtag not a real show.
I think if Nix goes to like a reasonable organization with kind of a good Shanahan West Coast style offense quarterback, he's never gonna be.
I think
like his ceiling is like Tannehill, like 2019 Tannehill. I think
that's not how you win an argument with Kitchen, because that's music to his ears.
Yeah. I mean, I see Bo Nix as being a very Alex Smith like quarterback.
Great, yeah. That's even a better one. That's a better one.
He's gonna be a good backup.
But also win you games, not lose you games type of thing. Like, do you ever like punch up though? Are you able to punch up and win a Super Bowl? But that's the great thing, is we don't have to worry about that. I'm not gonna pretend like. I'm
not worried about anything right now, Reebs. You're just vibing.
He's just vibing.
But I don't. But why? Like, why do I need to come out here on any show and have a declarative statement on JJ McCarthy's like NFL ceiling, when, from a fantasy stance, for him to be like an actual like top 6 quarterback is so small. Like, that's all I care about, man. I care how much money JJ McCarthy's gonna win me.
Reebs and I are built different. I just am built for like leveling off a Bo Nix take at the drop of a hat, and Reebs is like, you're not getting me on that shit.
Kitchen, do you want to try your question again?
And to be fair, I mean, Drake May, as much as I think there's like an actual ceiling, if I was an NFL team and would want to access Drake to take a swing on a ceiling. Yeah. But Drake May, from a fantasy stance, also doesn't profile to be like a guy, like he projects to like as like an apex to get to like that Burrow, Herbert, like level tier, and like that's the most overvalued fantasy tier there is. Because like those guys have to flirt with throwing 40 passing touchdowns a season, and we've seen in recent years when those guys don't, it's like you just have something you can arbitrage in fantasy. Like, it's the most arbitrageable.
Winning NFL quarterback who doesn't run is like, I mean, we're already seeing it with CJ Stroud, right? So Stroud right now is quarterback 6
which is
the
ludicrous.
underdog
And I love
It's
CJ
ludicrous.
Stroud, but I'm not drafting CJ Stroud in fantasy football next year. He's gonna be way too
Or
expensive.
Tank Dell. Tank Dell is super expensive these days. We'll get to that in a second, though.
But Jaden Daniels, for as much failure, I think he's probably has the highest bust rate of all these guys, is the most fantasy relevant.
All right, Reebs, I tried to ask you a question, and you just flatly refused to answer it. So let me go on
Ask
to
Peter.
Peter.
Well, and Davis sidestepped it too. He gave his personal ranks. Ask me the
Oh,
question.
I'll do my mock
No,
draft.
Davis.
Nope.
Please.
You had your
Nope.
chance.
Yeah. All right, Pete, give me who you think is going to go off the board first.
I think Caleb Williams is, dude.
Yeah. After Caleb, what would you go 2 through 4?
I think the Washington Commanders are going to be like, man, I heard someone comp Drake May to a cokehead Justin Herbert, and they're going to run to the podium to select him.
Next. Over Daniels. Okay. And then number 3?
3, I heard he had an incredible
You got to ask
pro
your
day.
mother-in-law first.
Incredible pro day, and just pretty much the same age as Trey Lance, which augurs really well for his future development. I think the Pats, greatfit.com, Jaden Daniels, easy select.
Yeah. So where does JJ go then?
JJ, the Cardinals, they trade out from 4.
Yeah.
And the Minnesota Vikings come storming up. They say, we don't need you, Kirk. We got the next generation's Kirk and JJ McCarthy at 4. And Bucky Irving takes the biggest L. Just the biggest. Not Bucky Irving.
Bucky Brooks.
Bucky Irving's going to take a big L in the draft because he's plummeting.
All right. Let's hold on, Davis. We got to move on. We got 13 minutes. Hold on.
I want to ask Reebs a question that's actually about fantasy football.
Well, I'm about to. Malik Neighbors just had an incredible pro day. Are you keeping up with this at all, Reebs? Or you just don't?
Have you heard about this? Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have heard this. I mean, we were waiting on both these LSU guys because neither one of them even weighed in or got measured
at the combine.
The combine, and it was a big deal for Jaden Daniels because and he only was 210 pounds, but there was a lot of people were definitely worried about his actual size.
Yeah, they said he's on that Uncrustables. He was on the Uncrustables diet, just trying to get that weight up. But I want to talk about Malik Neighbors, 4.35, a 42-inch vertical, 10-foot and 9-inch broad jump. The guy is an athlete. How close is he now for you? Does this move the needle at all on him versus MHJ?
Yeah, I think they're real close anyways, because of where Neighbors wins. I just did a show with Davis and kind of brought up so the current offensive and defensive counterplay right now in the NFL has changed the fantasy landscape and what kind of receivers you need for fantasy football and where guys win, right? Like when you and I were playing fantasy football growing up, it was all about that X receiver, right? Like you needed that prototypical, Shanahan X receiver, a guy that dominated on the outside and won. Now we're seeing, because of the way teams are playing defense and approaching, making NFL teams drive, they want you to beat them in the quick game. They want you to have long drives. They want you to complete shorter throws. We're seeing more guys in the fantasy landscape that matter now. Guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, even CeeDee Lamb is a guy who started out as basically like a full-fledged slot receiver and now does like a mix and match of both. But what I'm saying is you have to be able to attack the wide receiver position from every wide receiver position now as the lead wide receiver. And that wasn't the way it was, kind of growing up. And, last year you look at the amount, we had 19 wide receivers average 15 or more PPR points per game. The slot rate for those wide receivers on average was 29%. Only 5 of those guys were below 20%. 6 were over 30%. And Neighbors already did all that stuff in college, right? Like he already played in the slot a good amount. And he won vertically. He did all these things. He just doesn't really take any projection because he won at every level. Smashed in the slot, smashed on throws 20 yards or further downfield, forced a bunch of missed tackles, did everything that you want to translate to where the current NFL game is being played. I think Marvin Harrison can do all those things. He just wasn't asked to do it in Ohio State, and he takes a little bit more projection. He didn't really play a lot in the slot. He wasn't a huge yak guy, although the amount of yards he gained after the catch versus his total was kind of similar to Neighbors. He just didn't force a lot of missed tackles. It was more like when he won vertically downfield. But he did average over 5 yards per route run in the slot too at Ohio State. He just didn't play a lot in the slot at Ohio State. So he just takes a smidge more projection. I think the landing spots though do matter when you like lay out the shakeup for these guys. I mean, you look at Arizona, if they take one of these guys at 4, like that's a pretty desirable spot, I think, for target runway, attachment to quarterback, like functional offense versus the guy that gets saddled to like play with Daniel Jones, right? Like, so like there is some like maybe tiebreakers where landing spot goes into play here. But I think Neighbors definitely does everything you want to translate to the current NFL game and be a lead wide receiver right out of packaging.
Pete?
Yeah, what's the question, Kitchen? You can't just say my name. Reeb said a lot of different things there. So what's the question?
No, I'm sorry. You had left the show while I was asking it. But the question was Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Neighbors. As far as Neighbors Pro Day, Neighbors just you might have missed it, but he just went nuclear today at the Pro Day.
I didn't miss it. I've watched the broad jump on loop. Denny Carter said it looked like a glitch with how far he drafted or jumped.
He just like paused in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still Harrison over Neighbors, but
Harrison is going so high.
So is Neighbors. Neighbors is going.
There's actually a pretty big delta. There's a 11 pick positional delta, 13 pick positional.
If you look at it based on a wide receiver tier, like there's a huge wide receiver tier drop off by the time you're getting to the Drake London. People are still drafting DJ Moore super high, despite Keenan being there. Like it's a long tier down to the Waddle Neighbor stuff. So it's not that different to me. And it is like if say Harrison wasn't in this class, we would be saying, holy shit, Neighbors is being drafted so high. Because you still think back to Jamar Chase going 5th and 6th round. You know, Garrett Wilson went in the fucking 12th round his year. And we'd be like, we're taking Neighbors here. So I think it's like efficient. I don't even think it's bad. But I just, I think the market has it correct where it seems like the takes are now starting to fly that they should just be right next to each other as far as how the NFL evaluates them. And to me, that seems more of a byproduct of Harrison going full recluse. Like if Harrison was out here, jumping at his pro day and doing all the stuff in his underwear, people would be getting more excited about him, but he's done a disappearing act.
Hribar Chargers have pick number 5. By the way, JJ's prospect guide is really good. Go get that. Maybe we'll get JJ actually on the show. Chargers pick at 5. They don't have any wide receivers. I mean,
they took one in the first round last year.
Yeah, Alex Erickson erasure, buddy.
That they did take one in the first round last year. He burned a lot of people, this guy included. But they also need offensive line, and you've got at the coaches meeting, you had Hribar saying like how important offensive line was. If you're the
GM they hired comes from Baltimore.
Yeah. And I honestly thought what he said was good as far as like it's the one position class that doesn't their performance is not tied to any other position, right? Like in fact, others' positions are tied to theirs. So, but do you think the Chargers trade back? Do you think they take offensive line, or do you think they go for one of these two receivers we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, no team has ever been put in a spot that trade back more, I think, than this. The way it lays out for the Chargers. The thing is, everyone else knows that as well. So, I mean, especially depending if there's a wild card at 4, right? Like if someone trades with Arizona to 4 to take a quarterback, one of the quarterbacks, then like that means one of the wide receivers is there at 5. And do the Chargers do that, or do they trade out? Like it's just wide open. It's wide open for the Chargers right now to do what they kind of want to do. They also have a high 2nd round pick, and this is a good wide receiver class in terms of depth. And they could easily just take a guy there too, because they did take a 1st round wide receiver last year too, who's on the books for 1st round equity. So it's wide open for them. So I don't really know what they're going to do. I would say, based on the history of these coaches, of Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, I would rather have them just pass on a wide receiver so we don't have to deal with this shit, right? Like we just don't have to. Like I don't want Malik Neighbors going to the Chargers. It'd be cool if he's attached to Justin Herbert, but like when Hribar and Roman were together in San Francisco from 2011 to 2014, the 49ers were 30th in the NFL in dropback rate, 31st in passing plays per game. You go back to all the stuff we've talked about with Jason McCarthy at Michigan. Like, they're the slowest paced college team. Like, we know what they want to do, and they're going to win games. The Chargers are going to win games.
The alternative is if the Cardinals, let's just assume one of the Cardinals or the Cardinals take a wide receiver there. Like, the alternative for Neighbors is going to the Giants, most likely. I mean, don't you want Neighbors as the wide receiver one with Herbert way more than dealing with Daniel Jones?
But it's just it's just going to be such a heartbreak, man. This whole Chargers situation just really irks me, because the Chargers are probably going to be a better real football team. I mean, look at everywhere Harbaugh's gone, man. Like, he's turned it around. They've had
how's their defense going to be? Are they going to be able to establish it on the ground if they're down in all these AFC West divisional games?
I don't know. They'll find a way, man. I mean, to be honest, I mean, the division outside of the Chiefs isn't like there's no one you're scared of, right? Like,
it's Larry, Moe, and Curly outside.
Hey, that's the Broncos who just signed Josh Reynolds as about 15 minutes ago, guys. Back on the Broncos.
I thought we had put a moratorium on trading draft picks for head coaches. Like, you know, and what are we doing? Like, this Broncos situation is what a nightmare, man. What an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, Saints also have a nightmare of a situation with the offensive line. We'll talk about that probably in 2 weeks, maybe, when we get noted offensive line guru, legendary upside $2 million Pat Kerrane on the show.
But I mean, the Chargers immediately, the first thing in free agency, the Chargers did was go sign Will Dissly and Gus Edwards. Like, there's no secret on what is happening here.
Yeah,
they are saying the quiet part out loud.
A little Jordan Humphrey-esque signing by the Chargers there.
Lol Jordan. All right, Reebs, I do want to talk about this Cleveland Browns offense. So obviously,
no one wants to talk about this except you, Kitchen.
Reebs,
the most expensive offense in the NFL.
Reebs, you're in Cleveland there. Give us your thoughts on just the ceiling of this Browns offense this year.
Boots on the ground.
I mean, the ceiling from a perception of what all these players can be as NFL players, or the reality?
The reality.
No, the ceiling. You don't have to worry about reality. We're dealing with the ceiling for this team.
Because we've got we don't know if Deshaun Watson's ever going to be good at football again. Like, that's kind of up in the air.
Debatable.
We'll keep talking about it. We're on year 3 of maybe chasing that ghost, right? So still be put out there. He actually was okay for fantasy, if that makes you feel better. That's
makes
all we care about.
Makes you feel a lot better.
The Jerry Jeudy, who's like the all-time Sound and Fury all-star. Like, you know, like, we're just, I mean, that contract extension is very wild. Andrew Berry typically is not operated on that spectrum, because we have to assume the Watson thing was more Haslam anyways, right? Because Watson removed the Browns from he had it down to Saints and Falcons, and we have to assume that Haslam was like, do whatever it takes. And then Watson was like, oh, you guys are just going to give me the most ludicrous contract in NFL history. I will put you back and play for that. You know, you still have Amari, you have Njoku, but like, as far as like personnel goes, it's good. Like, this is a good group, right? They draft production, and they draft. That's what the Browns do. Like, Andrew Berry's had a complete model. I'm more interested to see what happens with the running back situation, right? Because we have to assume Chubb isn't going to come back. You know, at 100% in season, like, he'll be a guy that's like a ramp up guy. Jerome Ford was terrible. He was absolutely awful last year. And Kareem Hunt he couldn't even walk. Like, he couldn't even run more than 3 yards. So I'm more interested in see, like, the Browns are going to draft a running back in this class. And I'm very curious to see, like, where that guy goes and how, and because he's going to get early season opportunity for sure.
Yeah. I agree with you that Browns offense, their passing offense is got a high ceiling. All right. What? Davis,
on paper, I mean, it's the same thing. It's a Titan situation, right?
I think that's all paper, buddy.
Yeah.
It's what it all is. This is a game played on paper. This is a fantasy game played on paper.
But nobody's drafting Jerry Jeudy, right?
I know, or Deshaun Watson. Like
you would be shocked to see some of the names that Jerry Jeudy is going ahead of.
And Deshaun Watson, I have to imagine, is still again a value at a position because he was in the full games he played was productive for fantasy football.
Whoa. You heard it here first, everyone. Reebs on the Deshaun Watson sleeper train.
Here you go, Reebs. I'm going to give you some names that Judy's going higher. Then tell me, who would you rather have, Jeudy or Khalil Shakur?
Jeudy.
Jeudy or Curtis Samuel?
Jeudy.
Jeudy or Rashid Shaheed?
Yeah, I'd still rather have Jeudy than all these guys so far.
Okay, so you are Jeudy. Then you're in line with market.
Yeah. So I'd rather have him than all those guys.
Okay.
All right.
Because what is it? What are we talking? He's got to be in the wide receiver 40s, right?
54, I think.
Yeah, that's. I mean, dude, like, you're doing pushback in the wide receiver 50s. Like, if he sucks, who cares?
Those are very wise words. We're all going to lose anyway, so what does it matter?
Before we sign off,
Jerry Jeudy was a bet the last 3 years when we kept on the Hopium train from Jerry Jeudy, Alabama. Like he cost you like wide receiver, like high 20s.
He was a 4th round pick last year before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of having a hard out when Reebs was going to be on the show. Should have known the actual analysis would push this back to a normal hour-long show. But we still got some stuff to talk about. So let's just keep it going really quick.
Let me
How
ask
hard was this out?
Really quick. Pete, do you want to say anything to Davis about Justin Fields?
I already took my L on that last week, 2 weeks ago.
I had totally forgotten that.
Well, kind of.
Unlike Davis, I own up to my L's. I don't try to find
this was before the whole Steelers thing. This was before the what the value for him was. Like, it sounds like you are owning up to it. So
I thought there was no chance he wouldn't have a starting gig about 6 weeks ago.
I can't
Who
think
throws
of a
more
player
passes for them next year.
Yeah, I can't think of a player who
like 9 games.
Whose dynasty value has tanked more than Fields from last year to this year. It's incredible.
Well, that's the Jaden. So Jaden Daniels, like #1 comp for me is Justin Fields. Like it's gonna burn bright for fantasy, but like it might you might not get like a second. The things that Jaden Daniels isn't good at are all the same things that Justin Fields was bad at coming out of college. And remember, Justin Fields had 2 years of like massive passing stats because of the system he played in, the players he played alongside. But like we knew Fields had no quick game at Ohio State, and he took a shitload of sacks. And that's the same thing with Jaden Daniels. Like it's the same issues. So I think
Jaden Daniels loves to get smoked. I mean, that guy just like seeks out contact. It's crazy how much he just like with like Lamar. It's like no one ever's able to square up on him, but Jaden Daniels would just get.
I could already hear, for a stone's throw from my house, the zappy chants as Jaden Daniels takes his 9th sack of the game.
But he's gonna be great. Like Jaden Daniels he's gonna rush for a bunch of yards, and he's gonna get those fantasy points. And people are gonna lose their minds. The sports callers, like Pete said, the sports callers are gonna lose their minds over him probably.
Pete's mother-in-law has a Zappy jersey or will have one at some point for sure.
She definitely wants Cokehead Drake May.
I'm so glad you said Drake May at the end of that. So Christmas
the crazy
Day,
thing about Fields from like a dynasty stance is like everyone knew like the writing was all over the wall and everyone blatantly ignored it.
Yeah.
Head in the sand, baby.
This show included. So Field Yates tweeted out about the schedule, and this is going to be week 17. Christmas Day got a game. The day after Christmas got a game. And then I guess the 28th, 2 days later, got games. Then 29th games, 30th a game.
It's going to be a hard out, but he can talk about the 17 schedule right now.
No, it's going to be insane. I want to get your thoughts, though, on one of the other pioneers in this industry, Sigmund Bloom, he said that we should go back to Week 16 finals because of this schedule. I want to know your thoughts.
Why?
Yeah, what's the reason?
He said we should be creating more competition between family and loved ones and football. If you're a commissioner, put this up for an off-season vote. If you're a player, ask your commish to put it up for a vote. So basically doesn't want people checking their lineups during the opening of Christmas gifts.
Yeah, why doesn't he focus on TikTok right now if he's worried about, apps that are destroying families across the country?
Listen, man, there's a lot of things outside of NFL that are destroying families. They're higher on the list.
I thought he was going to say because something with like more teams resting. I thought it was going to be a football-based take for having it, but he just wants a little more time with his family.
Yeah. And Sigmund Bloom, again, one of the OGs. Like I think Davis,
Sigmund Bloom and Jason Robbins both really care about our families. That's kind of their driving.
I mean, from a content creation stance, it sucks.
Yeah,
from us, just because we can't do
someone
anything.
Think of the fantasy analysts.
Yeah, what do you think of us? Because I don't even know who's playing. Because I'm assuming these games are terrible too. That are on these island games. Like last year when they're like, we're adding a Black Friday game and it's going to be quarterbacked by Tim
Zach
Boyle.
Wilson.
Like, and I've got to do Tim
Boyle and Tua,
takes.
baby.
Like,
it was going to be really good before Aaron Rodgers decided to just screw us all in prime time.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's like, I assume there's some terrible games on those, but and to Pete's point though, like when they added the extra week of the NFL season 2 years ago, we haven't seen any manipulation like into the season. Still, nobody's resting guys 2 weeks out. So like, unless that became like an issue, that would be the only argument I would say for like bumping your fantasy finals up, is if we saw like week 17 be a complete problem for the NFL and like resting guys. We haven't seen that.
Right. We are a month away from the draft, so we still have lots of time to fire off takes. Reebs, I know you don't care. All you care about is the fantasy implications, but not like, what happens leading up to that. So tell us where they can find your fantasy takes. Give yourself
sharpfootballanalysis.com. I've already written up all of the rookies pre-draft, all these fantasy fallouts from the free agency and all those things like that. So you can definitely check out the actual takes over there.
Awesome. Final thoughts, Davis?
I want Reebs's prediction for who the ship chasing ghost is going to be this year. Obviously we've had Sky Moore, we've had Laviska Shenault. There was
Corley.
There was David Bell.
Malachi Corley.
David Bell was one of them. So what wide receiver or running back is going to be? There was a David Bell clip. Go producer, check.
Davis, I'm aware there's a David Bell clip, but the archetype you are describing is not David Bell.
It's not David
Laviska
Bell.
Sky Moore.
Yes. So who is the heir to the ship chasing ghost throne this year? I've already posited my guess. This
is an interesting question because usually the ship chasing guy has been a guy has like a lot of hyper production, but maybe is undervalued by the NFL draft class. And this draft class is the opposite. All the guys getting hype really have no production. Like that's the interesting thing about this class is like everyone like in that like post top 3 steam and post like maybe let's do the next tier too. So you have Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, and Troy Franklin as like a mini tier. Everyone after those guys are kind of there on just from like the scouting stance, and that's not really how the ship chasing crew operates. I'm curious, like I can't see them backing like A.D. Mitchell or like Keon Coleman or Elad McConkey doesn't strike me as a ship chasing guy.
No.
Whoa.
You imagine Hunter Renfrow having a clip on the show. It ain't gonna happen.
Exactly. Although Sky Moore was a pretty like boring dude. But so I'm trying to find like a guy that's there. Like, oh, man, is it like Devontae Walker? Like, is this like a ship chasing guy?
Too flashy.
Javon Baker? Is he a ship chasing guy?
My guess is Jalen McMillan. Gretch doesn't like him. My guess is he comes around. So I'm sticking with my Jalen McMillan guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say maybe one of those guys. But that's the interesting thing about this class is everyone talks. I talked to Davis about this on his podcast a couple weeks ago. A lot of people, I think, are just banking in the potential ceiling for this wide receiver class, where a lot of these guys, I think, take a legitimate leap to kind of get there. Like the production profiles for this class are very lacking.
Yeah, Ricky Pearsall.
I like Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, same. All right. Final thoughts, Pete.
I'm gonna look up who these players are that Rich just said, and I'll get back to you guys on whether they're
Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson is another good guess. Someone in the chat said that. That's another good guess.
All right. That will do it for today's show. Want to thank Rich Hribar, aka LordReebs, for joining us. I want to thank Pete for joining us too. Eventually, that was nice to have him on, and
just for a little bit.
Yeah, just to keep up the persona. So appreciate y'all. And regardless of what Davis says, this is a real show. This is 100% a real show. So please like, subscribe. We're on the road to 10K. We'll see you in 2 weeks here on the Swolecast on RotoGrinders.com.
A real show would be weekly.